Star date 2021, July 9th, Friday. It's after midnight. It's actually Saturday. So, who would have thought that when I got my new phone and I knew I was going to be taking more video than usual, that my video would end up being vlogs of what I'm about to say. So, I'm Jen, or Mom, or whoever you choose to call me. And I was told today that I have breast cancer. So weird to say that, like, in words. So today's, again, Friday, July 9th, 2021, and I went to get an MRI of my breast on Tuesday, whatever that was of this past week, 9, 8, 7, 6, July 6th. And they had me get an MRI because my mom, Waltrack Pula, had breast cancer, stage 0, when she was 72, which is not that uncommon for people that are older to get some sort of cancer just because they're getting older. And she was at stage 0. She chose to have a mastectomy, I couldn't think of the word, because she had a triple bypass shortly before she was diagnosed, and they thought that it would be too much on her system to have other treatment. So they just, since it was stage 0, they just removed her breast, and that was it. So now she's got a broad little chicken cutlet thing stick inside. So my MRI was just supposed to be a baseline. I was told I have dense breasts. So mammograms make it hard to see if there's something up. There's no family history of breast cancer, as far as I know, on either side of my family until today. That would be me. Yeah, so had the MRI done, which was an interesting experience. If you're a woman, well, Google it if you don't know what a breast MRI looks like. It's a very awkward position to be in. And then they called me at 7:30 the next morning, which is never a good sign, and told me to come in because they found 2 masses, one on my left breast that was 1/2 centimeter, and another on my right breast that was 3.5 centimeters. And they wanted me to come in to do a mammogram and an ultrasound, and then a biopsy of each mass that they saw. I asked when they wanted me to come in. They're like, tomorrow. Okay, not concerning. So I did that yesterday. They ended up taking doing 3 biopsies. The left 0.5 centimeter one, which is small, somewhat, well, if you want to look, it's like over here, close to my armpit. The right one, the big mass is, well, yeah, I guess you better get looking at these suckers, because not gonna have them look like this. I don't even know when, but the right one is like right around here. This was the turns out it's 3.3 centimeters big. And then there was one right here where they went in, which was close to my nipple, and they had to use a mammogram biopsy of that one, which was calcification. I haven't spent a lot of time online looking up this stuff. I intentionally don't want to, because when you Google stuff, it always says horrible things. Like, I read that you got, 5 years to live, but that's bullcrap, because unfortunately, the percentage of women that get breast cancer in their lifetime is a pretty high percent. I think it's like 1 in 5, something like that. I'm still really sore from the biopsies, which were tolerable. The biopsies, they actually weren't that bad, but Not that bad. They stick a needle in your boob. But I've had worse pain than that. And then towards the end of the biopsy, they took a lot of samples, especially of the bigger one. And I'll make these more concise next time. It's just obviously very fresh since this is day one of me knowing. And I still have a little bit of monkey brain going right now. So when they did when all the biopsies were done, I said I had it done at Newton Wellesley Hospital, and the women there were fantastic and like supporting me and whatever and helping because I was there for 7 hours. And the woman who did the biopsies, I said to her, well, now that you've seen them, on the MRI and on the mammogram and on the sonogram or ultrasound, I said, can you tell anything, by texture or whatever? Oh, they also, and this is an interesting sciencey kind of cool thing, cool, but whatever. They implant titanium clips inside of your breast every place they've done the biopsy. So I have a I have a mesh clip here and a ribbon clip here, which I think actually kind of looks like a ribbon, not sure, and a ribbon clip on this side. And like it's a mesh and a ribbon. There's 4 different kinds, and there's a mesh and a ribbon one here. So that they want to use different clips to like make sure they can identify both of them. And the reason being, like, if something were up, like there is, they don't have to go hunting around so much. Sorry for shaking around. Because they're like markers, they're indicators of, okay, this is where we went in, and now we know where the masses are, and they don't have to go hunting around to try to find stuff. So if there is something up with your biopsies, they know exactly where to go to deal with them. And if there's not, then they just keep them in there as markers. And, if you had to have another biopsy down the road, they know, oh, well, this was an area of concern, X amount of years ago or whatever. Interesting, like, scientific fun fact. So yeah, I said to her, like, can she tell anything? And she looks me in the eye, and I'm expecting her to say, well, we can't say anything because we don't know, the telltale cover your ass doctor response. And instead she looked me in the eye and she says, you're not going to die from this thing. And I was like, didn't expect that response. I mean, good news, but I was hoping she'd say, oh, don't worry about it, whatever. Yeah, she said, you're not going to die from this. She said it's the 21st century, and when people find out they have breast cancer, it's not like it's a death sentence. Obviously, most of the time. And that they have a great care team, and they'll be with me to figure it out step by step. So I'm just like, okay. So then left and whatever. I can't even think of the rest right now. So that was Thursday. I'm sore, whatever, took Tylenol, put ice packs on. And they said they'd call in a day or two to give me the results, which since it was Thursday would have been a Friday or a Monday. And they called today. They tell you have to wear a bra, like a sports bra, to sleep in, to kind of keep the ladies together while it heals, because that your body obviously has to grow tissue around the clips to keep them in place, and they did stick a friggin' needle in your boob, so you know, they want to make sure that everything heals okay. So the sports bras I have are pretty old, and some of them are a little saggy because I am 49. I should throw that out there. 49, I'll be 50 in December. Again, it's July. Sorry for the awkward pauses. I'm just trying to think, and I really should be going to sleep because it's like midnight. A lot of information today. Anyway, oh, my bras. So yeah, so I had a bra on, and because the right one is kind of high, the seam was rubbing up against, I have like these steri tabs or something that go one way and then a band-aid that goes the other way, and it was rubbing up against it. So I was, there's a thing called Facebook, depending on when people watch this, social media, which is like great and not great. I've been staying away from it because it's been very negative for lots of reasons, especially lately. So historical marker, I guess, we're supposedly coming out of a pandemic right now for the COVID-19 virus. The past year has been an interesting string of events for me health-wise. And maybe they're all related to this. I knew my body was off. I knew my body was off because so many weird things were happening, and I'll get to that in a second. But anyway, so I put this thing on Facebook, and I just said something like, you know, need well wishes, prayers, whatever, which I don't really like putting on Facebook, but I did have a kidney stone last September. Let me just do the rewind quick of the health things that have been going on. So last June, I think, with the pandemic, like the world was just like shut down. Everything was shut down. People couldn't go anywhere. The virus was spreading so quickly. I don't even know what the numbers are of how many cases and deaths there are, but again, something else to Google. There's a lot, and you know, enough to shut down the freaking world. I think New Zealand was the only country that wasn't even super impacted, but it did close down businesses, and it didn't close down hospitals, but basically hospitals were running mostly virtually through like Zooms or whatever, and a lot of people they were having people not go to the hospital unless something was like seriously wrong. So I was scheduled to have I hadn't had my last mammogram since 2018, so that's 3 years. And I had gotten a letter saying that my breasts were dense. I think I've gotten that more than once, and a lot of women have that, and that mammograms are not always the most accurate way of seeing if something is wrong because there's so much dense tissue that it's hard to see through. And then my mom had gotten breast cancer when she was 72. I think she was 72, 73, something like that. She was born in 44. It doesn't really matter. I mean, she was older. So since like there's now a family history, she's like, my gynecologist said, let's just do a baseline. I said, that's fine. But I had recently been diagnosed with fibromuscular dysplasia, which doesn't like rule my life other than I take Bayer every day. It's been pretty much fine. But it's still there and something I'm aware of. And the other thing is when I went to the breast center at Newton Wellesley Hospital and asked them about about doing the MRI, they said they'd have to use contrast dye. And when I found out I had fibromuscular dysplasia, I had to do CAT scans, and I had an anaphylactic reaction to the contrast dye, like throat closing up, the whole nine. It was awful. They just flushed me with saline and stuff to get the dye out, and then I was fine after. And then I had to have a second CAT scan to confirm the FMD because they saw 2 dissections and 2 arteries. And they pre-medicated me for the second one. I was on prednisone and Benadryl certain intervals apart before the CAT scan, and it took a little bit longer, but I still had a reaction. Not as bad because it was just hives. And then they flushed me with saline after the hives started. So when she said contrast dye, I'm like, whoa, I don't want to do that again. So the radiologist or the person at the breast center wanted to check with radiology to see, like, is it the same dye? You know, you can't really do the breast MRI without contrast dye because it wouldn't show anything. It'd defeat the purpose. So, like, what to do? So she looked up stuff, you know, called the radiologist and stuff. And then even when she said stuff was fine, I still wanted to do my own research. And I did. And they're 2 totally separate dyes. Fast forward, like, I did have the contrast dye and I was fine. It's water-based. It's not iodine-based like the CT scan one is. But I was leery and I pushed it off just to make sure, you know, it would be okay. Not because I was being negligent. And then by the time I actually thought I would go ahead and make the appointment, then the pandemic happened and you couldn't really go in to do anything voluntary. I mean, volunteer, like there wasn't an immediate need for me to have the MRI. So I didn't, you know, they weren't scheduling them. And when they were, I had all this other health stuff going on. Like I went for my annual gynecological visit and my pap smear came back abnormal, which has happened before, and my HPV test came back positive, which had happened before. I wasn't sexually active when that happened. Usually HPV, like if you're sexually active, you're probably going to test positive at some point for HPV. Now there's a vaccine against it, or for like younger people, so that people don't get it. So I had to have a colposcopy, take a biopsy of my cervix. Those came back. It was benign. My Mirena was expiring, so it was expiring through the pandemic, and I'm like, I need to get in there, get the little sucker switched out, and they switched it out. So my lower belly was inflamed, obviously, because of all the hubbub, which I expected, but it's really been inflamed since that happened, and it was like a year ago, which is not really normal. But I am 49. My periods are all over the place, so I'm in perimenopause, and a lot of things you can just blame on that. It's just hormones. Like, you know, I don't know when I'm getting my period and when I'm not. Totally haphazard, so I could be bloated. Who knows? But it's been like this for like a year. And then with the pandemic, it's like it's getting better now, but like people aren't going out as much to do stuff because you had to wear a mask, even leaving your own home. You know, even outside you had to wear a mask. So, you know, people weren't exercising, couldn't go to the gym, like, you know, no group exercise classes, none of that stuff. So I thought I'd just put on some weight, which is, you know, would be expected. And right now, like, I'm not dating, so I didn't really care about the weight. But it was different. It was almost like I felt like I was pregnant. Like my upper belly here, it was just a different shape. It's hard to explain, but I'm very in tune with my body, and I'm like, this isn't what I look like when I gain weight. I gain weight in my face, like I gain it down here, and I usually gain it in my belly, but it's all over. And then my pants started not fitting. And again, not so much because of my belly, because that's happened before. I couldn't get them up over my butt, which is so weird because, like, my butt's always been so flat. Anyone that knows me for a long time knows that, like, I have no butt, you know? And all of a sudden, like, my clothes aren't fitting because I can't get them over my butt. And I've never had, like, I mean, maybe my hips are big, but I've never had issues with that at all. If anything, my pants would just go, like, straight down, and that was it. So I was just shaped differently. And I'm like, well, maybe that happens to women as they get older, or who the heck knows. I don't know. Like, it's menopause. It's hormones. It's like big question mark for like everyone. I should use a tripod next time. Anyway, And then in September, on September 4th, because it was the day before my son Caleb's birthday, it was the day before his 16th birthday, I got a kidney stone. And I'm like, where the hell did that come from? And that's a horrible pain. Oh my God. Drink water. That was an awful pain. Yeah, had a kidney stone. It turned out it was made of calcium phosphate, which most stones are made of calcium oxalates. So I've been meeting with a nutritionist to figure out like what things to eat. I'm meeting with urologist and with an endocrinologist who at this point I see every 6 months. Get lab tests done, do these fun 24-hour urine samples, all this stuff to figure out like what's causing the stone. And for me, the gist was that my body, my parathyroid hormones were like super high when the whole thing first happened. And the parathyroid hormone, the glands, basically they're there to like tell my body like something's up. When they're high, it's like something's going on in your body. Could also mean that you have a tumor. But they started me on this thiazide medication. The first one, it was like super constipating, and I'm like, I can't have that. So they switched me to hydrochlorothiazide, and that worked, and then it got my PTH numbers down. So not a tumor, don't think, because the numbers dropped, and they had been dropping. My last set of labs, which was just in June, my numbers went up again, and I'm like, why now are they going up? It was just a little bit weird. Like I've been not eating spinach and almonds and all these things I'm not supposed to be eating, drinking a ton of water, drinking like 100 ounces of water a day just to flush out my system so I don't get another stone. It was just like weird because I'm like, I was probably in the best shape of my life before all this stuff happened. Like happy, like on my own, whatever, but like happy with who I am and how my body looks and all that stuff. And it just seemed really weird timing that now of all times I'm having all this health stuff go on. That's like totally random. So the endocrinologist thought that, or told me that my body is basically sucking calcium from my bones because it's not absorbing it from the food that I'm eating, even though I've been on calcium supplements for so long, which is like you need it from actual food. And dairy doesn't really work well for me, stomach, like GI wise. The other way to get calcium a lot is dark leafy greens, and dark leafy greens are also high in oxalates, which you can't have oxalates if, it just increases the chances of having a kidney stone. So damned if you are or do, and damned if you don't. So I'm trying other ways of finding calcium and making sure I get enough protein to have all that work. But I still just thought it was really weird that, like, why don't I get a kidney stone of all things? It just seems totally random. And I own up, I did not drink enough water before the whole thing happened. So if that was why, like, I totally take ownership over, or responsibility, whatever, over that. So kidney stone was in September. Pandemic was still going on. And then I got COVID the end of March, which was also bizarre because I wasn't really going anywhere. I wasn't like one of the people that was out socializing and stuff and not wearing a mask. I was doing all the things that you're supposed to do. I wash my hands every time I come inside and wear the mask when I'm around people. And as soon as I leave my apartment in the damn hallway, I wear a mask. Right before it happened, I hadn't seen anyone socially for 2 months. I didn't even go grocery shopping. I had my groceries delivered. So I wasn't around anyone, so I couldn't understand how I got it. And now knowing that I have breast cancer, I'm like, my immune system probably is just compromised and makes it more susceptible to get it from wherever. We've had fire drills, or not really drills, fire alarms that have gone off in the building and walked out. And I'm like just walking by someone you know, if they sneeze or cough or something, you could get COVID. So I got COVID. It was pretty rough. I still don't have my taste back entirely. My chest still hurts sometimes, and my upper back. And then the vaccines rolled out, changed presidencies, yay. And then I got the vaccine, had a tough reaction to the first vaccine. It was like having COVID again. And then had a tough reaction to the second vaccine. Not as bad, it just seemed to drag out longer. Not as severe, but just took longer. Like again, symptoms came back, just not as bad, but they lasted for longer. So I'm like, why is all this shit happening? The church stepped in to bring me food for his parish, which was ginormously helpful. You know, I'm a single mom. It was like my older son Max wasn't home. I don't even know who I'm making this video for, that I'm like introducing you to my kids, because maybe they're watching. I don't know. I need to get this off my chest and share, because that's what I do. Like my voice, I wasn't really able to speak because I have a talk show, Neighbors to Know, and I stopped doing the talk show because I had all these health things going on, and I needed to focus on my health. I'm just rambling so much. God, it's been almost a half hour. That's what happens with my shows. It's like, try to keep them to a half an hour, and then I end up talking longer. I'll make the other one shorter, I promise. I'll try. The point is, there's a lot of health stuff going on the past year for everyone, but I know when my body's not right. And even when they had me go in for the biopsy, I really didn't expect it to be malignant. But part of me, when she told me today, so what she told me today, the woman who did the biopsies called, Julie Phyllis had come by to, I asked her, she texted me and said, you know, if you need anything. I'm like, I need sports bras, because they're sagging and they're hitting me on, the stitching is hitting me, or not stitching, but like the end of the sports bra is rubbing up right against where she did the biopsy. And she said she'd get me sports bras. So she dropped them off, and it was a little after 5, and then my cell phone rang. And she asked if I wanted her to leave, and I'm like, no. I'm like independent, but I don't like being alone. Not in a needy kind of way, but like I know when I need support, and I'm not gonna not advocate for myself. Something I've learned after a lot of personal development. And she told me that my left breast biopsy was fine, as she has suspected, and that the right side, the calcification did come back as malignant at stage 0, which is good. I mean, good that it was stage 0. And the larger one, which was the one they were concerned about, is 3.3 centimeters. I think they said it was 3.5 on the MRI. And that's malignant too. And she said it was a grade 2. I haven't tried to understand all the terminology. I'm sure I'll learn as I go through. Stage-wise, they can only say it's a stage 2 based on the size of the mass. It's a clinical stage 2, which is literally only because it's between 2 and 4 centimeters. They don't know beyond that. She did say that typically when breast cancer spreads, it spreads into the lymph nodes, into the armpit area. And when the radiologist woman called me, the one who did the biopsies, when she called me, she said that my lymph nodes looked good. So that was good. But either way, the breast surgeon is going to do some sort of procedure to check my sentinel nodes. I guess to see, like, you know, if stuff has spread. Because I said to her, you know, I'm supposed to have another colposcopy because my came back positive again, and my pap smear is not back yet, which is weird. It doesn't take that long to get a pap smear result back, I don't think. But I'm going on next week on Wednesday for a colposcopy again, because the HPV test came back positive. This is the 4th time it's happened for me, and it's always been benign, but I'm more concerned now that it might not be, given this. And I said to her, is it possible, like, if I have cervical cancer, if those are malignant, would that be because of this? Like, does it spread that far from my boobs down to my cervix? I had an ultrasound of my uterus done because they couldn't find my Mirena strings, my IUD strings, at my last annual, and they did the ultrasound so they can see where the Mirena was. And usually I can see the ultrasound screen because it's kind of cool to look at your innards while they're in there. And they turned it away from me, and the nurse practitioner and the sonographer were looking at the screen trying to find the IUD. They're like, but my uterus is a mess. I have adenomyosis. I know that my uterus looks all bumpy, funky. And I know I have 2 fibroids that they've been watching. After the lab results came back, my fibroids have grown at a concerningly alarming rate. And my gynecologist, Dr. Morris, said she wanted to see me in 3 to 6 months for another ultrasound. I don't know if that's going to change now, given this. I guess I'll find out next week. But the woman who did the biopsy, I think she's a radiologist. I really don't know. I met so many damn doctors, I can't keep everyone straight. She told me that, if breast cancer spreads, it typically does not she didn't say typically, like it wouldn't spread all the way down to my cervix. I also know that I tend to be like the 1% of statistics. Like, this isn't supposed to happen, except for like 99% of the cases, and like I'm like that 1%. I'm not worrying about it right now. It's not a reality right now. So I go in on Tuesday next week for an appointment with the breast surgeon, just to talk about like plan of action. The woman who did the biopsy said it would involve chemo, radiation, and surgery. And the nurse practitioner that called from the breast center, the oncology, whatever, I only heard the oncology part. Like, you don't want to get a phone call from someone about you that has the word oncology in it. That word just threw me. She mentioned a lumpectomy, but she was saying how like the mass is so big that they'd be taking off a large chunk of my right breast. And fortunately, because I don't turn 50 till December, and I guess all this is happening like now, like not that they're going to wait or something to do all, like to start treatment, that I can have the BRCA gene testing and the other boob, because even though it's benign, if I have the BRCA gene, there's a chance that I would have breast cancer on the other side too at some point. So I can choose to chop her off too, and insurance would cover it to have implants. Like, I'm such a natural person. I have no makeup on right now. My hair looks like this, it's in back in a ponytail all day. Never would I have thought that I would have breast implants. crazy. But, I am 49, and my boobs are saggy. Well, it's interesting because they weren't always saggy, and over the past year, I mean, I'm home so much, so I pass the mirror a billion times, and I'm very comfortable with my body, to like look at my body, whatever. And I can't even say this would have been picked up with like at some point when it was 3 years since I had the mammogram, I did do self exams, whatever, but I feel like I never know what I'm looking for. And my mom had lumps before, but they were fluid based. I'm not quite sure. It's hard to get a clear picture there. So I remember her making me feel her boob when I was like a teenager or something, and I'm like, ew, I'm touching my mom's boob. But I remember what it felt like, and I never felt that. And even when I went for my annual, and I said to the nurse practitioner, like, I'm starting to get a little nervous because it's been so long, like, can you just dig in there and do a really thorough exam with her hands on my breasts? And she did, and she didn't find anything. And she was digging around for quite a bit, and she didn't find anything. Which is crazy, because it's like 3.3 centimeters. It's not small. It's like, whatever, it's not small. But when I physically look at my boobs, especially my right one, I did notice that it almost looks like it's like it got a chunk taken out. Though that's not even where the tumor or the mass is. But it just looks different. It's like, it just seems like there's tissue missing, kind of. But I'm like, I'm getting older, so maybe that's just what boobs start to look like over time. Like, older women have saggy boobs. Maybe that's just what it looks like. So I don't know. I don't have sisters. I don't have a ton of information. Like, I don't talk to my mom like that about stuff, or really anyone female older than me about anything like that. So I'm just learning as I go. I did cry a couple times. Hard, but not long. Because of my FMD, like, I have to watch my blood pressure, so that's always in my space. And what am I going to do? I mean, I've been through so much with, like, my divorce. The kidney stone was like the worst pain I've ever felt. And I've been through a lot as a mom. I don't feel defeated. I've been working really hard to become a not glass half empty kind of person, which is partly why I was off of Facebook. But when this is going on, I'm like, I'm a little nervous, and I could use as much positive thoughts headed my way as possible. Here's a plug for my show. I did an episode with Dan Junkins and Janice Skolton, and the gist of, and theirs was the one show, well, it was 2 separate shows, but same day that I filmed, that I was leery on interviewing them because I felt like I'd be too skeptical. Because Dan had leukemia and Jana had MS, and their whole thing was like, if you think bad things, then, that's how your body will react. So, like, think of a wonderful thought and everything will be just fine. And I'm like, I don't want people thinking that. As a disclaimer for me, I'm not a medical doctor, and sure, it sounds like all peaches and cream, but is that really realistic? And I think it is. And I need to get back to filming the show. I need to do that. To fill people in on what's going on too. Obviously, I haven't told my kids yet. Their fathers this weekend. And I need to talk to them first and foremost, because this obviously impacts them greatly. And more so Caleb, that poor kid. He's had to step up so much. And I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll figure it out. I always figure it out. But I don't know what I'm going to do to, if I have chemo and I'm throwing up in the bathroom, it's like, I'm not going to ask him to hold back my hair. That's not fair for a 16-year-old kid. I don't know. I can't go that far forward because a friend of mine is going through treatments right now and for breast cancer, and she's not having the nausea and all that stuff. So maybe I won't. So I can't assume what's going to happen. And I can't be naive enough to think nothing's going to happen and things will be fine. I need to be prepared. But I don't want to be so hard on myself. He's had to step up in so many ways. That's not fair for a kid. I want him to be able to be a kid. You know you're a good mom when you're more upset about the impact that this has on your kids than the fact that these ladies aren't going to be here for too much longer. Maybe I'll get some really good scholarships for schools or something for this experience. I don't know how. They're everything. My kids are my world. So when I think of them hurting in any way, it just makes me sad. And it's going to be so hard to tell them, but I have to not say anything until I meet with the, I'm at 42 minutes. I have to not say anything until I talk to the breast surgeon. They advised me to wait to talk to the breast surgeon. My friend Kathy is going to go with me. She's awesome. And the breast surgeon obviously has been through this before, that she can give me some tips on like how to phrase it to the kids so they're not like scared, especially since the pandemic. I've lost so many people. So many people have died that I know the past year, and only one was from COVID, and that was my Aunt Inga, and I can't even say she died from COVID because I feel like she got COVID and then she passed a few days later, but there were other things going on that most likely, my battery's dying, most likely were why. Yeah, my battery's dying, so I need to shut up soon. Yeah, so I guess I'll wind up here because it's getting late. So I plan on doing these video things just to have a memory for me and for whoever's watching, to make people aware. Facebook is a great resource in getting the masses out to... I have a lot of acquaintances, not a lot of close friends, but I know a lot of people really care about me, and I need that support right now. And Facebook is a way to, reach the masses, pun intended. So I'm looking at this. It's not like a glass half empty, glass half full. She looks me square in the eye and tells me I'm not going to die from this. I believe her that I'm not going to die from this. It's true. Like, there's been so many advances. If she had said stage 4, it'd be a whole different ballgame. My boobs are probably both not going to be these. Which, if there's a foreign thing in my body, I don't want that foreign thing in my body. You know, I've had these guys for 50 years, so maybe it's time for the reboot that I get some new ones for the next 50. And I'll have implants, so have new perky boobs at the age of 50. It'll be my 50th birthday present. Like, look, meet my new little friends. So, yeah, this is my journey. I'm Jen. I'm very authentic and real. I don't overshare. I share as a therapeutic thing, and I share to get the word out because a lot of people don't share. And that's not me anymore. It's time to be open and not scared, and I'm not scared. I'm in friggin' Boston, for Pete's sake, the medical mecca of the country. And I'll be okay. It's gonna be a little interesting road, as a lot of things have been in my life. This might be, you know, top 3. And I'll keep you posted. So that's it. I'm gonna go to sleep. I'm glad I got that out. And here's to shinier days. Keep the faith. I don't even know how to end this, so I'm just gonna say bye.